Hello there guys, Davinator right here, and today I'm bringing you guys another movie review. Now, okay, I'm not just going to hold that the entire review. Anyway, the movie I'm reviewing today came out a while ago. It came out in 2002, and it stars Matt Damon. It's directed by Doug Liman, and that movie is The Bourne Identity, based on the novel of the same name, written in 1980 by Robert Ludlum, and there's an entire series of books, and also there's a series of movies. There's 2 movies following this. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, now, shaky cam, the style of cinematography, to where there's a lot of shaky camera work in the action sequences in a lot of today's movies, is always trash talked, and understandably so, because shaky cam almost never is used well. However, I think some critics have taken it a little bit too far, because there are some directors who can use shaky cam well, and there are some movies that have good shaky cam, and yet whenever film critics are talking about movies that have just terrible camera work and terrible shaky cam action sequences, they also talk about the movies that actually did it right, namely the Bourne films and other films I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about some of the movies that do shaky cam right, along with, some of the Christmas movies. It depends on when these videos get uploaded. And the Bourne Identity is the film that brought shaky cam into, mainstream action pictures. It wasn't really heavily used until later in the 2000s, and now in the 2010s you get shaky cam in almost every action movie. However, Doug Liman and Paul Greengrass and the sequels actually used shaky cam pretty well. But anyways, let's get into the story. Now, the story is a little bit complex. Basically, the movie opens up, and it's a great opening. It's very atmospheric and kind of creepy. You see a guy floating out in the ocean, and this boat, they come and pick him up, and when he wakes up, or he's played by Matt Damon, and he has amnesia, so a couple weeks later, they drop him off on land, give him a little bit of money, and he has to go and fend for himself. And he's trying to find out who he is, and eventually he realizes that he may have been involved with some shady parts of the government, and now a bunch of government officials want him dead, and, spy movie stuff. And he's on the run, and it turns out he actually has some pretty cool skills that he can utilize pretty easily. Kind of like a sleeper agent. They don't even realize that they have the skills until all of a sudden, breaking someone's neck. It's kind of like that with him. And he eventually meets a girl, and go off on the run together. Now, I actually have notes written here, just because I want to, I'm trying to bring you guys higher quality reviews and talk about more points and stuff in my reviews. So anyways, first of all, and so that's why I'm looking down, was what I meant. So first of all, I haven't seen this movie in a while. Now, the first time I saw this, I was 6 years old, or I think the reason I wanted to see the movie is because, my family and I, we went to go see a movie. It might have been Superman Returns or something, and they showed a trailer for Bourne Ultimatum. I was like, ooh, that movie looks cool. And my mom was like, oh yeah, you probably like those movies. And so she showed me the first one when I was about 6, and I loved it. It was, for a while, it was one of my favorite action movies. And then I rewatched it a couple of years later, and I was like, so it wasn't as good as I remembered. However, I just rewatched it last night, at the time I'm recording this video, of course, and I hadn't seen it in a while, but I forgot how great this movie is. I mean, the only reason I think that I enjoyed it less a couple of years ago when I rewatched it is because, I remembered it as being, one of the greatest films of all time. This isn't, one of the best action movies of all time, but at the same time, it kind of disappointed me. However, rewatching this, knowing what to expect, just taking the movie for what it is, it's really good, and I understand so much why I loved it in the first place. But anyways, so yeah, you have a great lead character in this movie. Jason Bourne, the title character in the movie, Matt Damon plays him very well. The character is already well written. He has good dialogue. He's smart. He's really cool. He's intriguing. And, you feel for him because he wants to find out more about his past, and you're going along with him, okay, man, come on, find out what's going on. And Matt Damon just makes it even better. And people back in the day, when they heard that Matt Damon was going to be playing in an action movie, people were like, what? The guy from Good Will Hunting and School Ties? He was only in dramas back then, and maybe occasional comedies. But he really pulled it off, and he does a fair amount of his own stunts. And the fight sequences, and this movie has great action. This is by far one of the best action movies of the 2000s, of the past 15 years, really. This is just movie is, once it gets to the 30-minute mark, it's just, the movie moves along at a very brisk pace. It's very fast-paced, and it's just constant action. And yeah, it's just very well choreographed. And the story, but it's not just good action and a good pace. The story to accompany it is really good too. You really want to find out what's going on. It's intriguing, it's interesting. And like, well, no, never mind. I'll get into flaws later on. But anyways, yeah. And what little shaky cam there is, because the thing is, like, as I said, I want to talk about shaky cam. Bourne Identity actually doesn't use very much shaky cam. Doug Liman, he's not a heavy user of shaky cam. He just decided for, like, some of the shots and some of the fight scenes, like one fight scene in particular, like the main, fist fight of the movie, he has against this operative that comes to kill him. There's some close-up shots to where it's handheld, shaky, but the thing is, the reason it's good is because you can see what's going on. You can keep track of where the characters are in relation to each other, and you can still see the great choreography, and it's really good. It's a great fight scene, and might be one of the best fight scenes of any movie that came out that year in 2002. And, so the shaky cam is actually good. And really, that was only the fights, or that was the only action scene in the movie that used shaky cam, except for maybe, like, the very last scene. There's a little bit more shaky, but it's still not as close up, not personal as that. And even in that fight scene that used more shaky cam, like, there are some, like, when it does cut to a wide shot, it's, like, really dynamic. Like, the, camera's just, like, walking around. It's really good. And this movie just looks great. It has great cinematography, great direction. This movie, I mean, I already said this movie moves along at a breakneck pace. It's really fast and quick, and it's a lot of action. It's just, it just keeps on going and going and going, getting more and more exciting. Even when there's not action, the story's intriguing. And that is just helped so much by the direction in this movie. I mean, Doug Liman did a terrific job with this movie, and yeah, I mean, this movie, just every second, it's just like the direction is very sleek, and it's quick, it's fast moving, and in the action, he really makes the action sequences feel really fast and quick, and the musical score, which I didn't realize until I just rewatched it, and for whatever reason I decided to like watch through the end credits too. The musical score is done by John Powell. If you don't know who John Powell is, he did the musical score for How to Train Your Dragon, which has possibly one of the greatest musical scores of all time. And he's up there with like Hans Zimmer, James Newton Howard, James Horner, with like some of the great musical composers. He's not like, quite on John Williams, Danny Elfman level, but he's awesome. And yeah, this isn't like one of his best scores or anything, but it's a good score. And here's the thing that some people might not like, like, there's a little bit of, like, early 2000s pop music. Because I grew up in the 2000s, it doesn't really bother me. But for some people, who grew up a little bit later, they might find the music a little bit cheesy at times, Like, if you watch, like, any, like, trailers for movies in the early 2000s, I have that... I mean, I can't really imitate it very well. It's just, like electronic, but, like, cheesy. I don't know how to explain it. And the point is, like, some people might think that the music at times is a little bit cheesy. I think it's used pretty well, and it works for the style of the movie. I mean, it's an early 2000s movie, early 2000s pop music. It accompanies the movie well, I think. And yeah, again, the shaky cam, it's not even used that much, but when it is used, you can still see what's going on. It makes the fight scenes feel more intense, and this movie is actually surprisingly close to an R rating. Like, I mean, when Bourne, he's fighting that guy, he picks up a pen, he's, like, stabbing the guy in several different places. Like, there's blood on the pen, there's blood smeared all over the guy's clothes and his face by the end of the fight. And, I mean, it's actually pretty brutal. I was surprised. And there's, like, 3 F-bombs in this movie. Generally, in PG-13 movies, you don't only get 1 F-bomb. I mean, not that any of this really matters that much. I'm just saying, I notice things like that. And so, yeah, the point is, like, this is pretty edgy for a PG-13 movie. And, yeah, and the direction is just so dynamic. I mean, there's really good cinematography. And, like, also... probably, like, while the fight scenes are good, this movie doesn't really have much of an emphasis on, like, gunfighting action. Mainly it's fist fights. However, this has one of, if not, like, or no, not the best, but it is definitely one of the best car chases of the 2000s. It has a great car chase, and the direction is just so sleek. The camera's moving around, you can follow everything. There's no shaky cam in this scene. It's all steady shots, wide shots, and there's shots inside the car and shots following the car, and it's really fast and slick and quick. It's just, and the choreography for the car maneuver, it's really clever and just cool too. So yeah, it's really well done. And Bourne, while he is really awesome and he's a great fighter, and it's really cool when he discovers all these things that he can do, he's not invisible. Invisible? No, he's definitely not invisible. He's not invincible. He does get beat up at times. He does get hurt. And so, yeah, you definitely do feel tension in this movie. This movie's pretty intense. And actually, what I really liked about this movie, and I never really thought about it much before, this movie actually has a pretty decent romance to it. This is, what Chris Stuckman would call a romance movie that's not really a romance movie. I mean, it's like the romance is actually a pretty heavy part of the movie. It's like, one of the main focuses of the movie, really. And it's not just like a little tacky thing that's thrown in, like, oh yeah, okay, he's gonna get together with a girl and blah blah blah. That always has to happen. No, no, no. She's a really good actress. Their dialogue together is good. It's interesting. It builds throughout the movie. It's not just like 30 minutes in, bam, making out. It's like it builds along as it goes along the movie, and they have good chemistry together. It actually works out, so it's pretty good effect to the movie as well. And yeah, also what I love is, well, yes, there are actually technically three sequels and a fifth movie coming out in July 2016. This movie, like, it leaves just enough loose ends to where, like, yeah, definitely you could warrant a sequel. It wouldn't not make sense to make a sequel, but it did stand on its own back in 2002. The movie ends in a way to where it definitely does not require a sequel. Just like, The Matrix. Like, yeah, technically it leaves it open for a sequel, and you could argue that they should have just, not made any sequels, but, like, The Matrix, it stands on its own. It doesn't need sequels. This movie, it leaves it open, but it doesn't require sequels, So that's pretty cool. And yeah, this is just, and I mean, I can't help but feel nostalgia when I watch this movie, because I mean, I loved it so much when I saw it when I was 6 years old. It was just, I had such a fun time watching it, and yeah, it was really good seeing, or just having a bit of nostalgia, and the movie has mostly decent dialogue. Now, I suppose I could talk about the flaws now. So, as of the flaws, now, a lot of these are actually nitpicks, and I'm not even saying I necessarily agree with them, but they're things that, like, some people might have problems with. The only, like, legit problem I have is, like, there are times to where, like, Bourne's pursuers, the officials, and they're all played by very good actors. I can't remember the name of one, but Brian Cox plays one of the bad guys in this movie. Brian Cox is one of my favorite actors, and he's not in this movie as much. He's kind of, like, in behind the scenes. It's not until the end where he becomes, like, kind of a straight-up villain. But in the sequels, he's really good, and he's very good at playing a bad guy. But anyway, yeah, so it doesn't apply to this movie. But anyway, excuse me, sorry. So when the bad guys are in, like, their office and, like, trying to find them, they're watching security camera footage. Some of the jargon, some of the dialogue, it's a little bit cheesy. It doesn't flow as well as personally I would like it to. It doesn't feel very natural, But that's only in a couple scenes. And also, like, it could be argued that when the movie does focus on them, it's, like, taking away from Bourne. And I would agree if it weren't for the fact that, one, the direction is still sleek in those scenes. It makes those scenes feel exciting. It doesn't take away from the pacing. So, yeah, it just, and also, I mean, I like the actors in those scenes. So I don't mind it, honestly. And, what else? And yeah, like, some people might take offense to the shaky cam, because some people just hate shaky cam, period, even when it's done well. Like, they just don't even acknowledge it, and they're just like, oh my gosh, the movie has the worst camera work ever, which I just don't agree with. And yeah, as I said before, some of the soundtrack could be argued to be kind of cheesy by today's standards. It doesn't bother me personally. And, okay, another thing, some of the supporting characters aren't the best. Like, I mean, or at least not in terms of they're not developed very well, is what I'm trying to say. But the thing is, the actors still give really good performances. I mean, it's not like the movie is about Bourne mainly. It's about Bourne's journey with this girl, and the girl was a great supporting character. She's well written, and the actress did a great job. So honestly, I can't even say that it's anything more than a nitpick as far as the supporting characters. So I'm not even going to list that as a real flaw. And as for the shaky cam, there are a couple, like, split-second shots to where it's like, okay, I couldn't really tell what was going on there, but really it just adds to the feel. And even in those shots, like, you still hear the loud sound effects, so, like, you can still tell what's going on. Plus, that only lasts for a split second, because then instantly it cuts to a shot where you can't tell what's going on. In pretty much all the like, the movie has great camera work. There's just a few, like, little mistakes that last, like, that take up, like, 0.001% of the movie. So it's hardly even a flaw, really. It's more of a nitpick. And overall, I love this movie, and I'm not just saying, that because I'm trying to let nostalgia take over. No. I mean, yes, I do have a lot of nostalgia watching this movie. I loved it so much when I was 6. Like, I ranked it up there with Terminator 2 when I first saw it. This isn't as good of a movie as Terminator 2, but it is still a great movie. Not a good movie. This is a great movie and a great action film. One of the best action films in the 2000s, and I gotta give it an A. As for the gore rating, it's PG-13, so I mean, you're not going to expect it to be that gory. But it is edgy for a PG-13. I give it a little blood. And anyway, yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I went a little bit more in-depth in this video without going into, spoilers and stuff. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you liked it, please rate and comment and subscribe. And if you want to, you can also share. Goodbye.